Hi, hello, namaste. My name is Afshan and I welcome you to the second season of the Connected CIO web series on the theme Work Reimagined, Remote Workspace in 2020 and Beyond. In partnership with Dell Technologies, Strategic is delighted to bring you this mini web series that will focus on the imperatives of a reimagined reality, remote workplaces, and a remote workforce. As Indian industry comes out on an unprecedented disruption, organizations are mandated to consider what to stop, start, and accelerate. In essence, from thinking about the new normal to actually making it work. As enterprises step into a new set of realities, finding the right balance between what worked before and what needs to happen next to succeed will be the key to resilience and growth. While, ladies and gentlemen, episode 1 will focus on the twin facets of collaboration and productivity that reflect the rise of the global and boundaryless economy and how a distributed workforce that now works from anywhere is going to need flexibility, customization, and portability to enable true collaboration. Why, ladies and gentlemen, it's time for you to grab your favorite beverage as we bring to you over the next hour or so very engaging, very insightful, and very interactive discussions about cutting edge workplace tools and technologies and modern workforce deployment best practices. While do stay with us through the end because your feedback form and your business mail ID gets you a complimentary copy of a very useful strategic action checklist on today's webinar episode theme and topics. Ladies and gentlemen, please stay tuned. We will shortly commence our first segment, In Focus, which will have industry leaders sharing their experience around business and workplace transformation.
Hello and welcome to the very first episode titled Rebooting Work, Collaboration and Productivity. And to discuss matters related to the whole concept of how a distributed workforce, a dislodged workspace of sorts, and a disrupted industry today, by a large measure, are going to change the way that organizations and enterprises are going to approach the whole concepts of transformation, collaboration, and productivity. And to talk about this, I have two very, very eminent folks from the industry, leaders in their own might. Harnath Babu, CIO KPMG India. Harnath, brilliant that you could be with us. Thank you so much for joining us today.
Thanks, sir. Thanks for calling.
And Bob Batchelor, Director, Solutions Technologies, Dell Technologies, Asia Pacific.
Hi, how are you?
Hi, Bob. Harnath, I'm directly going to come to you because what's clearly coming out really is that the whole concepts of the workplace and the workforce have significantly changed. Now, with this change really, what is your view given the benchmark of the first half of this year that we've already experienced with the disruption that we've had about how enterprise priorities are changing from the perspective of now leveraging the distributed workforce, the decomposition of the workplace by itself, and yet hitting the right notes and making sure that revenue is sustained and enhanced over a period of time. How do you think organizations, in your perspective and outlook, are kind of functioning?
So Arjun, I think the concept of work, workplace, and workforce, I think the focus around these three pillars across an enterprise is not new, right? I think it's been there for some time. I think we've been talking about millennials, we've been talking about Gen Z coming into the workforce. We've always had the new generations flowing in with new ideas, new experiences of the past. I think that's something which has been driving some of the discussions for some time. But what has happened was in last 5-6 months, since the time we've hit the pandemic, I think this has really accelerated the thinking in terms of which direction do we move. I think while we are trying to settle into the new normal, what we call as new normal, it's more of a pause to my mind. It's not a permanent shift that we are talking about. It's more of a pause which is going to be fundamentally shifting the way we're going to be collaborating and working, right? I think that's a change that we are bringing. Only thing is this was to come, but this obviously got accelerated because of the current situation, right? I think we've been into it for almost 5 months now.
Indeed.
Many organizations, I think initially they had a bit of a struggle to settle in, but I think more or less, I think most of the organizations, especially knowledge industry or be it manufacturing, be it healthcare, I think most of them have now got used to the new ways of working, right? I mean, you've seen the adoption of telehealth. You've seen 100% of the employees of especially knowledge industry working from home. Manufacturing is again kind of happening with very few workers. I think industrial IoT is kind of really doing a value add there. I think a fundamental shift is happening, but this was obviously was to happen, but it's happening much faster. So I think the key to all of this is to have a very frictionless enterprise, right? I mean, if you have a rigid organization which is not really susceptible to change in the changing circumstances, I think it's going to be difficult for any organization. So the key is to have a frictionless enterprise which can quickly adapt to any new circumstance, right? I think the current scenario has really taught us in terms of how to stay resilient especially in whichever business you are in, right? Focus on business continuity. What used to be very, I would say, in the books or in the SOPs and policies as business continuity, people have really seen what business continuity means, right? I mean, unless you have invested into business continuity, you're not really there. Otherwise, you would have had difficulty in terms of continuing the business. And the idea is, while you are dealing with the current situation, it's always important to stay upbeat in terms of technology, continue to innovate, because at the end of the day, we have also learned the hard way is that we are very people dependent, right? The moment people didn't or people couldn't come out of their houses, people had to stay home, organizations suffered. That means what is that is fundamentally needs to be changed, right? I mean, is it the people angle that needs to be looked at? Do we bring in technology where people were doing really, I mean, while you can't really change everything from a people point of view, but I think that there's a lot that can be done using technology wherever you have people dependency, right? And when you look at as an organization, you also have to look at your future strategy, right? I mean, if you want to continue with your revenue streams, if you want to continue with your business, I think you need to relook at your strategy, right, from a future perspective. We may have to relook at your business model itself. I mean,
Indeed.
look at
Indeed.
look at the retail business, right? It's not anymore their retail. I mean, nobody is going to stores now, right? I mean, people are obviously ordering everything online. People are really trying to have that social distancing when they are purchasing the stuff or any transaction that they're doing. So e-commerce obviously picking up. So is there a fundamental shift in the way business needs to be done in e-commerce, restaurant business? I think everything is
Everything has changed, which is why I'm going to take that to Bob. And Bob, sitting out of Singapore, having a fair view across Asia, uh, Harnath made a couple of very interesting points. The whole concept of frictionless experience, the whole concept of organizations being willing to adapt to the concepts of change, considering that, well, if at all something that's been taught to us in the last 6 months, it has perhaps been changed. How do you kind of look, and of course, he spoke about the whole concept of innovation. When you kind of put all of this together, Bob, what in your view is perhaps the formula, if there is one at all, for organizations to leverage all of this, look at it as an opportunity, and yet drive seamless collaboration and drive productivities? Bob Batchelor.
Oh yeah, okay. Well, look, I do mirror what Hanath was saying, and so I don't want to repeat anything he said there. So I might just expand out on that. And from what you're saying about how technology is used to really ensure the communication, connection, and productivity. So I think let's break this into a few parts. The very first thing is this situation isn't going away anytime soon, and we've had enough experience to understand how it can work, in this remote environment, but how do we optimize that? So I think the first thing we've been mindful of ourselves is, when I say ourselves, Dell Technologies, is Michael Dell came out and said he doesn't expect anybody to be clocking in at 9 o'clock and finishing at 5 or 8:30 or 6:30, wherever you are in the world, and your predictive hours that you're meant to work. What he's saying is he's going to base productivity on an outcome. Now, the outcome can be your objectives are met, your stakeholders are happy, your targets and quotas are met, and that you're also engaged. So these are the things that he's really focusing on. And as a leader within the organization, that's what he's asked us to do, is to make sure that people are using technology to ensure that they continue to sustain and improve on productivity if it's all possible, but mainly sustain. And I think Hanath also mentioned about that sustainability as being really important. But then how we use technology to keep people engaged, because now 5 months in, we're finding that there is some online collaboration fatigue. People are finding themselves maybe not engaged as much as they were. So there's other things that people are looking at to try and keep people engaged. Organizations are having sundowners or having online quizzes, or even one CEO at a startup, he had his senior leadership meeting from his bathtub, just to try and make it something different. And every time now when people join his meetings, they don't know where he's going to be or what costume he's going to be wearing. So just trying to liven up a bit. So there's some soft aspects there as well to consider. As long as people are happy, their work is generally good. In fact, MIT did a survey and they showed that happy employees are actually, in this current environment, are 2 times more productive and 25% more opportunity to innovate. So, there are real advantages to making sure that the technology is used to benefit everybody, not just the organization in productivity, but also that engagement with the end users.
But I'm going to take exactly that to Harnath. Harnath, Bob just spoke about the whole concept of happy employees. Now, something that I want to really ask you, and given your view of industry as a whole, how do you feel that the overall concepts of workforce expectations versus enterprise expectations are kind of playing out? Considering I'm sitting at home, my expectations are perhaps slightly different. The organization is equally in a situation where it is trying to cope with the challenges, yet continue to thrive. Now, do you think there's going to be a meeting of minds somewhere there, a convergence of views for it to be seamless in its entirety?
So, Arjun, I think with the new normal settling in, I think there's a major, as I said, major shift in the way people are thinking, right? I think the expectation point, as you rightly mentioned, I think it's really, I would say, people are really thinking in, especially with the new ways of working as people are getting used to it. I think the expectations are going high in terms of what an enterprise can do or what an employee can do for the enterprise. I think both ways, I think it's working fine. I think to my mind, I think we'll have to first is to stop assuming that the old ways of working are going to be back, right? Uh, I think that's the first shift that has to happen in both enterprise as well as workforce, right? And as I mentioned earlier, with millennials and Gen Z in workforce, uh, the overall transformation had already started, right? So if I have to take an example of our own organization, when we started redesigning or relooking at our office spaces, we said, why do we want to have linear desks anymore? Why can't we have collaboration spaces? Why can't we have flexible workspaces? And I think the concept itself was changing, but obviously it's further got accelerated with the current situation. But obviously the situation has changed, right? The very model of, or I would say rigid model of 9 to 5 was in existence some time back, but it's not there anymore because of the technology being there, right? So the idea is, from a workforce perspective, I think workforce will continue to expect that the enterprises will give them the right technology tools and ability to be productive, irrespective of whichever circumstances they are in. Right? I think that's one. Right. Second thing which comes to my mind is, since everything is going to be very technology dependent, right?
Indeed.
So the expectations on technology teams would go high. Either there's more of a self-servicing capability that needs to be given to the employees, or there has to be somebody to support anybody, anytime, anywhere, right? I mean, obviously it's going to be virtual, but I think the support is expected practically near real time. So I think that's another big shift that we are seeing. Third thing that we are seeing is with the temporal boundaries, I would say not being any more there, at least in the current situation, primarily around your work and work life. I mean, the work life balance. I think we will start seeing work life harmony than work life balance, right?
Very interesting. Very, very interesting.
You will start seeing people managing both the things together, right?
Yeah.
Um, and when people start going back to the offices, I mean, obviously you can't stay completely at home. You will definitely want to see an employee-centric approach, right? In terms of social distancing or anything specifically, because you're so used to working in a specific way for a period of time, you would definitely want to take some time to settle in the new normal. I mean, when you do office resumption, certainly that's an expectation from the enterprises, right? And basically all the and the idea is as you're settling into the new organization structure, or let's say new organization culture, then I think it has to be made easier for them to settle down. From an enterprise point of view, I think, as I said earlier, I mean, the enterprise will have to start thinking on how do they really organize the work, especially from a remote working perspective, right? Because it's going to be a mix of remote working as well as in the offices. It has to be a very, very different way of working in comparison to what. So
True.
practically, you're talking about non-linear, non-hierarchical kind of a structure, right? It's going to be teams, or let's say hierarchy of teams, or is the right word to use. They're going to be there everywhere, right? And possibly put in the best practices around collaboration and flexibility and accountability, right? Because once you have people out, enterprises will have to start rethinking about how do I really give that accountability and flexibility to people and continue make sure that they continue to stay productive, right? And the biggest shift here is how do I bring in that agility with the new type of working? I think that's another key aspect,
Very, very
which
true.
obviously gets added with innovation as one of the key components.
Indeed. Which is what I'm going to take to Bob. Bob, a very interesting set of points that Harnath made. Now, which brings me to, well, if I were to fashion this in the correct sense, about, well, okay, let me put it this way. For the last 2 3 years now, we've been speaking about connected workspaces, connected workplaces, and those in the physical sense of things have, well, been to do with sensors, facial recognitions, artificial intelligence, connected infrastructure, and so on and so forth. And increasingly, with a distributed kind of a workforce, the whole concept of connected workspaces has completely changed. Uh, I expect as an employee, and your expectation as an enterprise, is for me to be connected the moment I boot up my laptop or my workstation, as the case may be. From your perspective, where you're at the center of creating innovation and technology, how do you see the whole concept of connected workspaces in a changed reality of sorts coming into play, and for you to be able to craft that much more better and enhance experiences for organizations and employees?
I was going to pick up on some of the things that Hannah said about the connected workspaces and how people are really collaborating. And it is important to think about what's happened in the last few years. And we were very fortunate as Dell Technologies, we were already embarking on this idea of working from anywhere at any time and on any device. What's happened, and Hannah already said this, is that what's happened is really accelerated. It not just accelerated our adoption, but also the technology that we're creating. So to your point, Arjun, so what is we are focusing on, apart from making sure that we give a good experience to the end user, we want to think about what's going to make their life easier. And I really like the term harmonizing instead of work-life balance,
Yes.
work-life harmonizing, because it is exactly that. I would spend as much time speaking with members of my team about how they are mentally as well and physically, as well as they are about business. You know, it's not just all about the numbers and what you've been doing and the training they've been engaged in. It's about how they are with their work environment. I used to call it work-life balance, but I think I'm going to use this term of work-life harmonizing from now on.
In fact, I've actually written it down. I think this is one of the real takeaways,
Yeah,
Harnath. Thank you.
because I mean, it really is that. I mean, and I keep telling my team members, please stop sending emails at midnight. You know, it's not good for you. It's not good for us. And it's definitely not good for your family. So let's have a start and stop time. So be a bit more disciplined. Now, as I said, the idea for us is productivity is based on an outcome. As long as all your stakeholders are happy and there's no complaints, and everything expected of you is done, then that's a tick in the box for productivity. But with the technology side of things, we really moved away from this technology for technology's sake. Everything we are asking our employees to use or update really has to have a consequential benefit for them. some of the fantastic solutions we've been able to provide for BYOD, particularly in the early days when people were sent home and had no access to corporate devices, to be able to use their own iPhone or Android, any tablet, even if it was a Mac OS, an old PC, they were able to connect in, and through the technology, were able to connect into a corporate network, even from outside the firewall, but not have to worry about lots of different VPNs or authentication for different applications and tools they were using. Now, be able to give them a streamlined, seamless connectivity into the environment as if they were in the office was extremely important. And what we find now is making sure that they continue to use those that connected workplace environment capability, connected workspace capability, to continue to be able to be engaged. And I might just finish off on this whole thing about video conferencing. This is a great way for us to see each other engage. But as I mentioned earlier, people are starting to get fatigued about this. So ensuring that people don't get technology fatigue, making sure that they have other things to do in their work environment that takes them away from a laptop. And I think I've mentioned this before to you, Arjan. One of those very crucial things that we are looking at is other development for employees. So additional skills that they can start looking at, which helps develop themselves personally and from their career perspective. It doesn't mean that they are locked into a laptop for the entire day. So, just trying to expand out and move them away from this fatigue, this technology fatigue. So just like maybe just some learning, an online learning program that's got some coursework that takes them away from the laptop, and they can just do some actually reading or some writing some.
Oh, yes, absolutely.
These are the things that we're trying to just get into people's lives, which we never had before.
Arnav, Bob just spoke about the whole concept of engagement. Now, my question to you really, which it kind of hit me while I was, do you think the increased use of technology, and you, of course, mentioned technology, Bob's equally mentioned technology, and both of you, having known you for as many years, I know you're very strong proponents of the use and leveraging technology to drive forward-looking organizations and enterprises, really. But do you think the increased use of technology, the right tools, do you think the concepts of productivity are going to change, number one? And number two, do you think, therefore, technology will enable us to measure productivity in differential manners?
So, Arjun, I think we can't really defy the idea that that you can't run your business without technology, right? I mean, you have to certainly have technology as a key fabric of your, I would say, organization or let's say business, right? Obviously, technology has become the fulcrum of everything that we do, practically, right? So from the two aspects to it, right? One is obviously productivity of the employee, and second is the customer experience itself, right? So from a productivity point of view, if you look at let's say collaboration tools, or if you look at investment into some of the emerging technologies like our robotic process automation, or let's say AI-based platforms, I think if you do not have any of those technologies in place, I think you are really running. I would say slow. I mean, I wouldn't even say running, but I think you're really, really moving slow. Um, and I think that threat obviously is going to be some small organizations is really embracing technology and moving faster in that direction. So I mean, it's the older concept used to be the big fish eats the small. It's not anymore, right? It's the fast fish which eats the small, slow fish. So I think it's going to be, if you're a slow fish not at embracing technology, obviously you're going to be having a challenge. From a productivity point of view, as I said, you need to have right collaboration tools. Make sure that you have right technology so that your employees are productive. Certainly, from a customer point of view, if you look at if you're not really leveraging the data, if you're really not deploying the data and analytics to make sure that you are able to map the customer journey, come out with the insights, give the customers, let's say, an omni-channel experience, and
Absolutely.
understand the customer better and give them a personalized experience. I don't think it's possible manually. Right? I think you need to have technology. And as we move forward, I think with the current situation, I think it has taught us a lot. And certainly there's been a joke around saying that what has really created the transformation, right? It's COVID-19. It's an old joke, but certainly it's worth saying it because it has really accelerated the way people are leveraging technology, and
Indeed.
I've been able to plan for the quick turnaround. I mean, if you're still thinking that the old ways are going to be working and not invest in technology, I don't think
It's going to work at all.
work at all.
Very, very interesting. Bob, now to take what Harnath said as feedback, uh, you were at the center of technology at Dell. What kind of innovation are you bringing along that helps accelerate the embracing of technology by enterprises and organizations? And how are you fashioning technology for it to truly blend in with organizational objectives? I mean, if we could have uh, a few of your thoughts and experiences, and what exactly is happening at the Dell Innovation Stable?
Look, I think it's no surprise that most of our time now is spent on AI, and AI for lots of different reasons. And I'll talk about AI for good, particularly when it comes to end user experience. You know, being able to see how people work, see what applications they're using AI to really optimize applications for when they log in, what times they log in, how they use their devices. So there's those sort of things. But the big one has been AI for education and training. Um, Obviously, with a lot of schools now going online, there is a big uptick in development skills for training. So from that perspective, it's AI has been really important for us to be able to provide um, enough skills to be able to come up with new ways of making learning and training effective. And there's a couple of examples. Like they've been training now with the South African army. They're training the recruits with AI and augmented reality. And what they found is they were doing this because they couldn't actually go out and do this, but they're doing it virtually. And then the first time they go out and do a live shoot, they had a 20% increase in accuracy and performance. And so they showed them that it was although the investment to do this AI was initial outlay, actually the improvement was quite significant. And there's other areas, particularly in healthcare, where we're not able to have people come to the hospital to go through the process and understand, being able to give and deliver that to them in their home environment, so they know what to expect when they get to hospital, particularly young children going to MRI. If they're using the MRI, they go in there and they get scared because it's the first time they've seen it. They don't know what to expect, and it's costly and in time and money. Whereas they can actually go through that environment now in the comfort of their home, so they know what to expect. So my answer there is really that AI is probably our focal point. Where is it being used, particularly in places where you had to go for things like medical and any kind of education training. But this has also given rise to the new capability of things I mentioned earlier about upskilling, and diversifying your skills. And there's a new concept, this hub spoke community that's coming out, whereby lots of people were in areas that they could not use their skills because they lived too far from a facility. And now this whole connected workforce, Arjun gives us the capability to access those skills and those talents from
Indeed.
anywhere, and to get
Indeed.
involved in big corporations, even though they live 5 or 6 hours away from the
I
facility.
completely couldn't agree more. Because which is what I'm going to take to Harnath. Harnath, we do have about 5 minutes on the clock, so gives me the time to ask you something very, very important. Now, given the experience of the last 6 odd months, given the displacement that we all experienced in terms of enterprises, industry as a whole, do you think it's going to give rise to a new set of skills? Do you think the new ways of working, really, the fact that we are working through technology today is going to give rise to new skills, thereby enhancing productivities within the workforce in itself? Do you think it's going to be able to do that?
So Arjun, you're right. I think this has, as I said, this has really taught us, or this particular incident has taught us a lot in last few months. I think the first I would say is adaptability. I think if you have not been able to adopt new ways of working or new shifts that are happening in the way businesses are working, I don't think anybody can survive. The second is resiliency, right? I think you have to learn to be resilient in whichever situation you are put in, right? Third thing that is going to be coming to my mind is creativity. If you're not creative, you can't survive, because as we are moving forward, as we try to rebound from the current situation, I think creativity is going to be one of the key, I would say, skill set. Fourth one that comes to my mind is innovation, because the businesses are going to change. The businesses are going to relook at the way they've been functioning. And innovation and agility are the key, I would say, skill sets that anybody and everybody who's in the business today, at whichever level they are, right? I think they have to start either developing that or at least start working on it, right? One thing which is very important, and the current pandemic has taught us, is to have a very frugal mindset, right? I mean, you have money, you spend, it's fine. But at the end of the day, we also need to know how to survive, right? So I think the frugal mindset is something which obviously it has taught us, the current situation has taught us. As we move forward, we'll continue to innovate more with less. I think that's going to be the key mantra, right? The biggest for everybody and anybody is being conversant with technology. I mean, if you're not conversant with technology, I think you can't really operate, right? Be as an individual, as an enterprise, right? And last but not the least, which I think is the ability to learn and relearn. It's not that you learn something and then you are done with it. No, you have to continue to unlearn and relearn. I think that's going to be another key skill set that I think I would say you'll have to develop going forward.
Outstanding. And Bob, if I could just take that to you, three things that you would urge, beseech, or perhaps command your industry today to follow as essential practices in order to be able to thrive in the near to midterm, uncertain, unknown kind of a future, without it sounding as bleak as I perhaps did make it out to be, but nevertheless.
No, absolutely not bleak. There's always good out of something that we perceive as being bad, and there's always a way to take advantage of the situation. And in fact, going to Hannah's point about creativity and innovation, if you look at one of the airlines, AirAsia, they have a huge infrastructure, IT infrastructure, which they're not using. They've also got a number of staff that obviously they can't operate. So some reskilling of those people, and what they've actually offered is an e-commerce platform to a lot of small businesses that didn't have any way to sell their wares because they were used to that foot traffic. So now they've been able to very quickly move to an online platform and still be able to stay in business purely because an airline company came up with a kind of a e-commerce platform which wasn't there before. Now, will it stay there as things start to improve and AirAsia goes back to its core business of flying people around? Those office, or what they call the support center people, move back to being flight attendants and so on and so forth. It'll be interesting to see. It could be the fact that it's a whole new business with new opportunities and requiring new employment opportunities for people who before didn't have access to a job. So I think just to wrap that up, there's always a way, there's always a benefit. It's definitely no doom and gloom. It's happened. Let's make the most of it. I think that's right.
Outstanding. And that pretty much is what we have time for. But I think I still have 30 seconds each to sneak in one question each, really. Bob Batchelor, uh, the last 8 months, six or 7 months, your biggest learning, personally or professionally, that's going to stick with you for a long, long time to come.
My biggest learning was just how resilient people are. My team have been absolutely fantastic. It's incredible the innovation they've come up with, the ways of getting things done, the way they've been able to still help customers meet their challenges and objectives without actually being able to go and see them. So I've been overwhelmed by just the resilience of people, and not just our own team, but I'm talking about my colleagues and also our customers and business partners.
Absolutely. And Harnath, I come to you with the same question. Single biggest learning, personal, professional, could be any.
So I think I'll stick to what Bob said, right? I think it's about being resilient. I think I've seen a lot in terms of how people adopt, things change as things are changing. And another thing which is important is to continue to stay focused on your learnings, right? I mean, while if you're rigid about what you're doing, I think it won't take you long. I think you need to continue to learn and continue to evolve. I think that's the only thing that I would say.
Thank you so very much. But that pretty much is what we have time for in this segment of the episode. Harnath Babu, Bob Batchelor, it has been nothing short of a privilege to have this very scintillating conversation with you. I think, and I speak on behalf of the audience, we are much the better for having heard the two of you in dialogue with me. A privilege to have both of you. So, Harnath, thank you so much.
Thank you, Arjun.
Bob, a pleasure as always. Thank you, sir.
Shukriya.
Thank you. And to the audience, stay tuned. That was Arjun Vishwanathan in conversation with Harnath Babu from KPMG and Bob Batchelor from Dell Technologies. Stay tuned. We'll be back with the next segment shortly.
Well, I'm sure you all are enjoying yourself. We now commence our next segment, Spotlight on Success, where we will hear eminent industry leaders share their experiences and guidance on navigating workplace transformation and enterprise resilience. Ladies and gentlemen, here we go.
Hello and welcome back. I am Arjun Vishwanathan, and in the spotlights of success, I will be in discussion and dialogue with Neeti Malik, Group Leader, Crisis Management, Business Continuity, and DR, Concentrix Global. Neeti, pleasure to have you with us.
Pleasure.
Neeti, I'm going to directly jump into it. I think if at all there's this extended disruption of sorts that's been precipitated by what has clearly been a human tragedy at its utmost, the pandemic really. Business continuity plans with traditional outlines of protocols and procedures fundamentally that ensure the continued functionality of business during a crisis. Do you feel they've been tested to the largest degree? Everything that was traditional, has it been tested beyond compare?
Well, I'll be very honest on that one. Most of the organizations, when they planned for events like earthquakes, storms, civil disturbances, technology disruptions, etc. They catered to, the testing that was typically short term, or even in real terms. If you had your plans tested, they were typically going for like a week kind of a thing, or maybe at the most a little longer than that, even in case of weather events. Now, this has been a little different because traditionally there were instances where you were moving your people to work from home and other areas, or maybe moving people from one site to another, one location to another. Now, what's so different about this instance? The instance is very different in a way that one, you never factored the people aspect of it. You factored that, yes, in the event of an incident happening, I'll be able to, once my technology and other things are managed, my people will be available. That's the first and foremost thing. The second thing that you looked at was obviously a short term. You never factored that it could go this far. So that was something that took many leaders by a surprise. But yes, was the event, were there not enough signs per se, or warning signs per se for us to plan? I would say this event gave us enough warning signs. For most of the organizations, if you look at it, we got our warning signs right in the month of January when we saw the first level of media updates
Yes,
coming in view of the
first
pandemic.
wave, really.
Yeah, and if you really started working and planning at that level, then whenever you came to a situation like a complete lockdown or a complete shutdown of your infra and things like that, it really didn't matter because you had most of your people who were aligned to it, and you could get them to a mode where they could work from home. So some of the things, really worked well for a lot of organizations. The organizations obviously that started their planning efforts late or did not look at the warning signs per se, I think they were at a loss.
But tell me something, Ganiti, because you made a very poignant set of points there. But did you at any point of time feel challenged by not being able to affect the levels of collaboration, which classically one takes for granted in a physical space of sorts? And considering that the workforce really was distributed How
Right.
did you kind of approach the whole concept of seamless collaboration that would continue and therefore the same levels or perhaps incremental levels of productivity being delivered? How did you kind of look at that?
Yeah, so I think as the event unfolded, we obviously worked with our teams across the globe, started our planning well ahead of time. We obviously had, a lot of these processes that were documented, worked,
Mm,
rehearsed, and to some extent, um, even before, the government mandated lockdowns came in, we already started planning and started moving some of our people, so
mm.
some of the warning signs that really helped us plan ahead, and those were some of the things that really helped. And of course, maintaining communication with your teams was super critical, because you have to stay connected with your teams. You have to really communicate throughout. And it's an essential element, I would say, from a crisis management standpoint, because you have to stay connected with your stakeholders, be it your customers, be it your people, be it your management, be it the external agencies. I think communication becomes the key.
Indeed. So therefore, my next question to you really is about the whole concept of an incremental set of productivity metrics.
Mhm.
Have you seen them happen, and have you managed to fashion them through the the BCP plans that you put into place? And my second part of the question really is, with the benefit of hindsight,
Mhm.
would you have done something different?
Uh, some of the interesting things that we always factored as part of planning was, a lot of people look at continuity planning as a separate element, somewhere in a silo. It's not true. If you're working together with your things like factoring your information security requirements, or you're factoring all those business requirements per se into your planning, then I don't think it becomes too much of a challenge. So the moment there was a concept of work from home, whenever we talked about, there were a lot of technology related elements that we always factored right ahead of the curve. So that really has been helpful, and really helped us in terms of looking at our plans. It really worked pretty much, I would say, in line with the plans. A lot of things were factored, but yes, one of the elements, as I rightly, as we talk about, is the people element. The people element still remains a challenge for most of the organizations, because staff engagement is key. The physical touch is missing. uh, the mental well-being or emotional well-being of the people, that's one area that I think would still remain a challenge for most of the organizations.
Indeed. Indeed, which brings me to what you precisely said about
Hmm.
bringing people and the fact that it's been made very clear and stark to us that technology is at the
Hmm.
center of combating disruption of sorts. Now,
Absolutely.
how important a role did technology play, and how did you fashion a
Hmm.
quick turnaround as you did?
Yes, indeed, technology plays a key role. There were a lot of automations in the hindsight that really helped us. For example, robotic process automations, or when you were getting people to work from home, your DLPs, your device management, mobile device management, monitoring the infrastructure remotely. If people were connecting, then the biometrics, so some of these technology elements definitely played a key role in terms of ensuring that while people were connecting from home, we were obviously, ensuring safety for our customers. That gave an added, I would say, confidence to our customers.
Very, very interesting. Therefore, my question therefore comes to you about, now that you've been through
Hmm.
a real life scenario, a
Hmm.
practical application of BCP plans, continuity plans, disaster recovery plans, and so on, and
Hmm.
mitigated it, as I understand, to the largest degree.
Hmm.
For the wonderful audience that's sitting here today, listening and tuning in to us,
Hmm.
what would those 4 or 5 very, very important points or pieces of essential guidance be,
Hmm.
both from your experience as well as the recent experience that
Hmm.
Indian industry and, in fact, the global industry has been through?
Certainly. So, few things that I would say is, one, maintaining work from home is the new normal. So we all have to accept it, right? So work in line with the same. There are obviously going to be areas where we have to gradually come back to the workplaces because that's where some of our clients demand. So you have to ensure all the safety measures remain in place. One mess and it takes you back by really days. Factor mental and emotional well-being of your people. Staff engagement should definitely be part of your critical planning. Factor your security and data protection and privacy as an integral part of your planning. Uh, Manage your client relations really, really well. Partner with the clients to make their business a success. That would automatically ensure success for your organization. And of course, continued investment in technology would definitely be a key thing.
Very interesting points, Neeti, really.
Mhm.
But my question also to you is, what are some of the technology areas, apart from the ones that you said, and especially from the infrastructure point of view,
Mhm.
that you really think worked well for you in being able to deploy the kind of solutions that you finally did in order to get everything back up and running again? What's your view as a practitioner of
Mhm.
technology and business continuity?
Okay. So, from the infrastructure perspective, of course, we always had a tested infrastructure in place for us. So, which means that testing, and retesting always remained the keyword for us. So when you had, really evaluated all your redundancies, you had really tested all the elements right from your data center testings to your remote testings and even from the work from home perspective, all the technologies and tools that we talked about, the testing played a key role because that really gave you an added confidence that this is going to work. And of course, the emerging technologies are now also going to be focused around some of these areas per se.
Interesting. Because I come to you now with a question on the whole concept of, now, really, to what extent do you think, and looking into the future, to what extent do you
Hmm.
think this disruption that we've just experienced globally as well as in India is
Hmm.
going to force or perhaps mandate organizations and BCP planners really
Hmm.
to change their outlooks and perhaps reimagine the whole
Hmm.
concept of BCP, the whole concept of technology? How do you think that's going to pan out in your experience and from what you're observing at a global scale? How do you kind of see that?
Well, to be very honest, in the short or the long term per se, if I have to look at, definitely the planning is going to take a change because, as I said, your people aspect has to be factored. That's going to be one of the key elements that you're going to look at as part of your plans. Your the way the companies are today working, looking at maybe remote working or work from home as a new normal, even in a, I would say, the back to a normal world per se also is something that we need to watch out for, because the concept of office and how many people really operate from office versus how many of your people can work from home is really going to be different. Now, another critical area that really needs to be looked at is, the government support. How much the government supports, because in many cases you got the restrictions from the government standpoint. Of course, in the current scenario, they were, I would say, exemptions made, and they remain in force till another few months. But yes, how do you go beyond that, and how much support you get? That's really going to change the way you plan. So I think those are some of the key factors to be looked at.
And really, any from the point of view of guidance or your recommendation, any pitfalls that industry should certainly avoid now that we have the experience and the benefit of hindsight?
Yeah, so I think few things that we need to factor as practitioners are that work from home is the new normal. And many organizations are actually looking at long-term strategies of moving people work from home uh, for a longer term, even beyond this particular event. or I would call it as part of the now business, new business as usual, if you have to say. And the second important thing is, for all the practitioners, for who always thought that, maybe business continuity plan was more to please the client. Well, guys, your paper plans are not going to work. Reassess, reevaluate, look at the elements that really need to, be factored as part of the new planning. It's been a wake-up call for all of us, and that has to be factored as part of your planning.
Therefore, Niti, if I may be allowed to, do you feel today that from the board per se, or from the senior leadership, from the corner officers, line of business leaders, do you feel that there's a greater awareness and a greater acknowledgement of the really tough task that you folks do?
Definitely. I think few things I would say a critical message for all the board members or the leaders in the corner offices, I would say. I think some important things for them, or rather a key message for them is, manage client relations well, partner with the clients to make their business a success. That would automatically ensure success for your organization. People are your biggest asset. Take care of
Indeed.
them, they take care of your organization. Investment on technology is definitely a must do to support planning, and let's keep looking at the emerging technologies, how much they can support us, how much we can leverage them for building better resilience, and review all the arrangements. Never take things for granted.
And in conclusion, Niti Malik, I come to you with one last question, which is, what is one big prediction,
Mhm.
leveraging your experience over the last or the first half of this year,
Mhm.
and keeping technology in mind, would you make for the future for Indian industry?
Well, from the Indian industry perspective, I think AI is definitely going to be the thing. Biometrics for a lot of things is coming in a big way. Expect new stuff coming in there. Um, what else? Um, of course, from a security standpoint, we will continue to see emerging technologies that are going to speed up your entire process. Um, we also saw, some of the cases where, security compromises happened. In fact, many organizations, surprisingly, they really faced the biggest security breaches per se.
Indeed.
So I guess, security is definitely going to be key for you. So continue
Thank
to
you.
invest
Thank
on
you.
them.
That was splendid. That was truly splendid. Ladies and gentlemen, that was Niti Malik in conversation with I, Arjun Vishwanathan. Niti, delighted to have had you share your views
Pleasure.
and experience with us. Thank you so much. We loved having you with us. Hello and welcome back. This is Arjun Vishwanathan. We will shortly be inviting our very esteemed panelists to kind of unmute yourself as well as switch on your videos, please, so that the audience has a wonderful opportunity to interact with each of you, if that is a possibility. Well, we seem to be having a little bit of trouble there, but we'll get them to you shortly. Just try this once again. Right, Niti, I have a very interesting question that's come to me from a colleague, somebody who's connected on LinkedIn, who says for companies that are trying to increase agility, better collaboration has become a very urgent priority. A way to kind of reduce the organizational drag that kills innovation and responsiveness. Therefore, his question being, how should large organizations, such as the one, for example, that you represent, encourage more productive collaboration, if that were to be kind of the keyword? I'm just looking at the questions. Yeah, please, Niti, if you could address that.
Sure. So I think from a productive collaboration standpoint, of course, you have to stay connected with your people. You have to ensure that you're using all the potential technology collaboration tools that are currently available to you. Fortunately, our generation has an opportunity, to have all those tools that are available to us. Meet up with your people often, talk to them often, collaborate, not just for business, but also, at a personal level. Have your team meetings not just for the sake of business, but add a little bit of fun elements sometimes. That'll drive better productivity, because you don't want everything to be drab, right? You also want to ensure mental and emotional well-being of your people who eventually support your business.
Outstanding. And I have a question from Rajesh Babu, who asks me, which I'm going to take to you, Niti, is with all this talk about collaboration and productivity affecting superior business outcomes, is there a real possibility to measure the actual efficacy of what collaboration and productivity will lead to in terms of either increased revenue or profitability margins? So therefore, coming from your BCP and DR experience, do you think it's a possibility to actually measure the increment, measure the enhancement?
I think Arjun, it's definitely measurable, because the organizations that really took care of the people and took care of the technology aspect combined, I think they're already seeing that change in terms of, if I would say, not a revenue hike, but at least even to the extent of at least saving the revenues, or at least not suffering massive losses. So I think in the current situation, when we all factored massive losses and you're able to sail through well and be able to make some decent profits out of it, I would say you made a mark.
Oh, very nice. And well, that's pretty much what we have time for. But I do have one very interesting question that's come to me. Now, this one's anonymous for some strange reason, though I wish the author had mentioned his name, because it's extremely interesting, almost to the border of, amusing. Well, there's this person who asks me, what is your prediction on how long work from home is going to continue?
My friend, it's going to continue even beyond the pandemic now, because organizations are already considering moving a major chunk of their people to work from home model, as long as the clients permit that. So look forward to that. That's the new norm.
Thank you. That indeed was true. Thank you, a couple of technical issues there. We couldn't have our other two industry leaders, Bob and Harnath, be able to join us. But send in your questions to us at our official email ID. We'll make sure that your questions get to them, and we'll make sure equally that their answers to your queries are brought back to you. Stay tuned for the next very short segment. Please don't forget to fill in the feedback form along with your official email ID. You will be in receipt of a very interesting document that we will enable for you over an email upon the successful completion of your feedback, as well as with your official email ID. So stay tuned. That was Arjun Vishwanathan. Stay tuned. Stay safe.
Thanks, Arjun.
Rebooting work, collaboration and productivity. Highlight number 1. Collaboration productivity must be viewed as two sides of the same coin. Feature-rich tools and solutions and scalable IT infra. Highlight number 2. Streamlined workflows and borderless knowledge sharing lead to empowered workers and executives, enhanced innovation and creativity. Highlight number 3. IT solutions must be able to support workforce expectations and enterprise expectations, enable learning opportunities and career growth while helping a company or brand achieve market leadership and profitability. That is, work from home. Highlight number 4. Robust, high availability IT solutions enable streamlined business processes, help organizations achieve sustainable competitive advantage. Highlight number 5. Digital technologies must be designed and tested in the real world with real users in order for digitalization to deliver successful outcomes. Hashtag UX, hashtag DX. Highlight number 6. Progressive organizations must train their workforce on the latest AI, ML and data science skill sets, while mining large data sets to develop algorithms for their marketing, product development, sales, customer service and manufacturing programs. Stay tuned, folks. Our next episode features eminent industry speakers and subject matter experts discussing devices at speed of thought on the September of 11th, 2020.
That's all for today, ladies and gentlemen. We will be back with episode 2 on September 11, 2020 at 11 a.m. While let me tell you what's in store with episode 2. Episode 2 will focus on the change in workflow models and how organizations should relook at the way they view device modernization, essential guidance to changing the way the workforce interacts with devices, and the renewed focus on device refresh as a source of tactical and strategic business advantage. While let me tell you that your feedback and recommendations are very important for us so that we can improve our future events that we bring to you. On that very note, I request each one of you to kindly please fill your feedback form with your business mail ID, and our team will mail you a complimentary copy of a very useful strategic action checklist on today's webinar episode theme and topics.